My name is Evelyn Marlowe. At 9:14 p.m., on my 21st birthday, my father pulled me into the hallway outside the women's restroom and said, "When dessert is over, you're going to sign a few papers for your Uncle Grant. Don't make this difficult." Behind him, 14 people sat inside a private dining room beneath brass lights and a crystal chandelier. My mother was smiling too hard. My brother Tyler was ordering another bottle of champagne even though he still owed money to half the family. A coastal developer in a gray suit sat near the end of the table pretending he was only a friend of my uncle. And beside Uncle Grant's chair was a leather folder containing papers they believed would help them sell my grandmother's beach house. I looked at my father. Then I smiled. "I won't make a scene." Relief moved across his face. "That's my girl." I walked into the restroom, locked myself inside the last stall, and opened my phone. There was one message waiting from Catherine Bell, my grandmother's attorney. Filed at 8:03 a.m. Recorded at 8:19 a.m. Co-trustee authority confirmed. Property alert, active. By the time my family brought out the papers they wanted me to sign, the house had already been protected for years. And as of that morning, so had my right to defend it. The next day, my father and Uncle Grant walked into the county recorder's office with an affidavit, a quitclaim deed, and a purchase memorandum for property they did not own. They walked out with nothing. Grant had already accepted a conditional advance from the developer. My father had already counted the sale proceeds against his business debt. Tyler had already decided part of the money would pay off his truck. None of them had asked the only person who mattered. My grandmother. She had answered them 4 years earlier. On paper. If your family has ever treated your responsibility like permission to use you, this story is for you. I was 12 the first time Grandma Jo taught me how to listen to a house. Not live in one. Not clean one. Listen. She picked me up from my parents' home in a blue station wagon that smelled like peppermint gum and raincoats. My father stood on the porch and called after us. "Don't work her too hard, Mom." Grandma Jo waved without turning around. The drive from Northbridge to Harbor Point took about 45 minutes when traffic was light. That morning, the sky was pale blue, and the ocean appeared between the cedar trees in brief silver flashes. The beach house sat at the end of a narrow gravel road, half hidden behind dune grass and twisted pines. It was not luxurious. The white paint had peeled from parts of the porch railing. 2 roof shingles were missing near the chimney, the storm shutters stuck in humid weather. The front steps dipped in the middle, where years of salt air had softened the wood. But the moment I stepped onto the porch, the house seemed to breathe. Inside, it smelled like lemon oil, coffee, sea salt, and old books. Shelves lined the kitchen windowsill. A brass bell hung beside the back door. The sofa had faded blue cushions. The round oak kitchen table carried a dark burn mark from the year my grandfather set down a hot pan without thinking. Grandma Jo handed me a small screwdriver and pointed toward the screen door. "Hear that?" I frowned. "Hear what?" She opened the door slowly. It groaned in 3 places. "The first squeak is the hinge," she said. "The second is the frame. The third is the house complaining, because nobody has tightened that screw since Easter." I laughed. She did not. For the next 3 hours, we moved through the rooms as though we were doctors making rounds. She showed me which window swelled in July, which attic door needed a shoulder shove, where rain entered if a storm struck from the east, which porch boards softened first. "A house tells you what it needs," she said while I tightened the loose hinge. That afternoon, we ate tomato sandwiches on the back steps with our feet in the sand. The tide was low. Gulls circled over the water. Grandma Jo pointed toward a row of pine trees leaning inland. "Your grandfather planted those after the storm of 1982. Everyone said they would never hold." "Did they?" She smiled. "They're still standing. The trunks were thin and bent from years of wind. But they were rooted." That was the first time she said, "Blood tells you where you came from. Loyalty tells you who your family really is." I did not understand her. I was 12. I thought family meant birthday candles, Sunday dinners, shared last names, and people who knew whether you preferred frosting roses or corner pieces of cake. I did not yet know that relatives could measure your value. I did not know my grandmother had already begun protecting me from mine. My father, Richard Marlowe, owned a contracting company that was always either about to turn a corner or temporarily short on cash. In public, he was charming. At home, he was sharp. Every crisis had an explanation. Every debt needed patience. Every failure required someone else to understand his pressure. My mother, Allison, could turn guilt into concern without raising her voice. She would say, "After everything your father has done," and somehow refusing him became a moral failure. My brother Tyler was 2 years older than me. He treated consequences like weather, something that happened near him, never because of him. When he wrecked my father's truck, the road was too slick. When he failed out of community college, the professors were unfair. When he borrowed money and did not return it, people were making things weird. I was the responsible one. That was the word my family used whenever they needed something. Evelyn understands. Evelyn does not cause trouble. Evelyn will figure it out. Responsibility, in my family, meant silence with better posture. One evening when I was 13, my father brought up the beach house during dinner. "Mom is sitting on a fortune and pretending it's a cottage," he said, cutting his chicken with unnecessary force. "Developers are buying everything along Harbor Point." My mother nodded. "The taxes must be terrible." "It's Grandma's home," I said. My father laughed. Not loudly. Dismissively. "It's an asset, Evie. Don't get sentimental about buildings. She loves it. She would love not having repair bills." Tyler looked up from his phone. "If she sells, can we buy a boat?" My mother smiled as if he had said something clever. 2 weeks earlier, I had won a regional essay competition. The certificate was still rolled inside my backpack. When I brought it home, Dad had been on a business call. Mom had been scheduling a doctor's appointment for Tyler because he injured his wrist punching a garage wall. Tyler had said, "Cool," without looking up. But when he mentioned a boat, the whole family discussed it for 10 minutes. That was how our home worked. My accomplishments were background noise. Tyler's wants became family business. The first time I heard Uncle Grant discuss Harbor Point, I was 14. Grant was my father's younger brother. He sold luxury real estate, wore expensive watches, and had a smile that never reached the part of his face where decisions happened. One Sunday, he came to our house carrying a glossy folder. I was rinsing glasses in the kitchen when I heard him in the dining room. "Coastal property is peaking," he said. "If Mom waits, she loses leverage." My father replied, "She refuses to discuss it." "Then make her." My mother lowered her voice. "She listens to Evelyn." The glass in my hand shifted. Grant laughed. "Then Evelyn needs to learn what a smart family decision looks like." I stood very still. That was the first time I understood I was not merely ignored. I was useful. The following weekend, Grandma Jo picked me up for Harbor Point. I almost asked about the conversation during the drive. But she looked peaceful behind the wheel, humming to old Motown, and tapping one finger against the steering wheel. I stayed quiet. We spent Saturday repainting the pantry shelves. On Sunday night, while rain struck the windows, she made clam chowder. We ate beneath the yellow kitchen light. "Your father has been asking about the house," she said. I stopped moving. "Grant too?" Her spoon paused. "So you heard them?" I nodded. She looked tired. Not confused. Not frightened. Tired. "People think wanting something makes them entitled to it," she said. "Are you going to sell?" Her eyes moved around the kitchen. The chipped mugs. The burn mark on the table. The brass bell by the door. "No." Then she reached across the table and touched my hand. "One day, this house will need someone who knows its sounds." I swallowed. "Who?" "You." My throat tightened. "But Dad." "Your father knows the price of everything beneath a roof," she said. "He never learned what makes a home." That night, I lay awake in the upstairs bedroom listening to rain strike the shingles. For the first time, I understood the weight of being chosen. Not favored. Chosen. Favored gets the larger bedroom. The softened consequences. The extra chances. Chosen is heavier. Chosen means someone believes you can carry what matters. When I was 15, Grandma Jo fell on the back steps. She broke her wrist and bruised her hip. My father drove her home from the hospital and spent the evening explaining why Harbor Point had become impractical. "She's alone out there," he said. "She isn't alone," I replied. "I go every weekend." "You're a child." "I'm 15. That proves my point." Grandma sat in the living room with her wrist wrapped and her face pale. She did not argue. She watched him. Grant arrived the next morning carrying a market analysis. He placed it on her coffee table. "Just review it, Joey. No pressure." She hated being called Joey. She did not touch the folder. My mother called me into the kitchen. "Sweetheart, your grandmother is proud. Pride becomes dangerous at her age." She does not want to sell. She may not know what she wants. Something cold settled inside me. Grandma Jo knew exactly what she wanted. That was the problem. People often call old women confused when those women refuse to become convenient. During the next 2 years, Harbor Point became my secret education. Grandma taught me how to shut off the water, which neighbor owned a spare ladder, how to read tide tables, which storm windows belonged upstairs, how to inspect the foundation after a hard freeze. She taught me quieter lessons too. How not to answer every question. How to let silence make dishonest people nervous. How to keep records. If someone says it was only a conversation, she told me once, handing me a notebook, they usually do not want a record. After that, I wrote everything down. Dates, names, things my father said, questions Grant asked, documents I saw partly hidden beneath other papers. At 16, I found a development flyer on my father's desk. A color rendering showed a resort with glass balconies, white umbrellas, and an infinity pool. Across the top were the words, Atlantic Shoreline Group, acquiring legacy coastal parcels. In the margin, my father had written, Grant says 1.8 if assembled. I did not understand assembled then. I learned later. Atlantic did not want only Grandma's house. They wanted several neighboring parcels. Harbor Point sat in the middle. Without it, the resort plan failed. With it, the entire stretch became worth millions. My grandmother was not sitting on a cottage. She was sitting on leverage. And my father and uncle had already begun spending it in their minds. Grandma Jo died when I was 18. The final winter took something from her every week. Her appetite, her balance, the brightness in her voice. The last time I saw her awake in the hospital, she wore a blue cardigan over her gown. I held her hand. Her skin felt thin. Her grip did not. The house knows you, she whispered. I leaned closer. Do not let them turn it into glass balconies. I won't. Promise. I promise. Her eyes sharpened for one final moment. Not with tears, she said. With paper. I did not understand. Not yet. At the funeral, my father cried hard enough that people touched his shoulder and said, She knew you loved her. Grant stood near the back checking his phone. After the burial, everyone gathered at my parents' home. Food covered the kitchen island. My mother moved through the rooms accepting sympathy. I went upstairs to breathe and heard voices inside my father's office. Grant said, We need to move before the estate becomes complicated. Dad replied, Give it a week. We do not have a week. Atlantic wants commitment. My mother said, Not today. Grant answered, If we wait, Evelyn becomes emotional. She'll be a problem. I stood outside the door in my black dress. Grandma had been buried less than 4 hours. They were already preparing to turn me into an obstacle. That night, I opened the notebook she had given me. March 28. Funeral. Grant says Atlantic wants commitment. Mom says not today. Grant says I will be a problem. I closed the notebook. I did not yet know how to fight, but I knew I would learn. For several months, nothing obvious happened. That was how they made me doubt myself. Dad returned to work. Mom packed Grandma's clothes. Grant stopped visiting as often. Tyler moved back home after losing his apartment because his roommate had changed the vibe, which meant Tyler had stopped paying rent. I began college 30 minutes away. Every weekend, I drove to Harbor Point. Dad called it playing house. Mom called it unhealthy grieving. I called it keeping a promise. I cleaned gutters, replaced a broken storm door pane, paid Mr. Beckett next door to help repair the back steps, bought supplies with money from my campus library job, saved every receipt. The house became quieter after Grandma died, but it never felt empty. Her handwriting still labeled tea jars in the pantry. Her rain boots remained in the upstairs closet. The brass bell still rang when the back door opened too quickly. One morning, while fighting with the gutter, I said, Your drainage system is personally attacking me. The dune grass moved in the wind like laughter. In August, I found an envelope taped beneath the bottom drawer of the old upstairs desk. I discovered it only because the drawer stuck and came loose when I pulled too hard. My name was written on the front, in Grandma's handwriting. Inside was a business card. Catherine Bell, attorney at law. Marlowe Coastal Preservation Trust. On the back, Grandma had written, When you are ready. My hands began to shake. Her final words suddenly made sense. Not with tears. With paper. I called Catherine Bell from my car. She answered on the third ring. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then she said, Evelyn, I have been waiting for you. Her office was above a bakery on Harbor Street. The narrow staircase smelled like cinnamon. Catherine was in her early 60s, with silver black hair cut to her jaw and a calmness that made the room feel steady. She did not begin with comfort. She began with facts. Your grandmother created an irrevocable preservation trust 4 years ago, she said, opening a thick folder. She transferred Harbor Point into the trust while she was alive. The deed was recorded. The trust also holds a maintenance account, an insurance reserve, and a small investment portfolio. She moved a document toward me. My name appeared on the second page. Evelyn Rose Marlowe. Sole remainder beneficiary. Successor co-trustee upon reaching age 21. I looked up. What does that mean? Until your 21st birthday, I remain the sole acting trustee. When you turn 21, you become co-trustee. Any sale, transfer, mortgage, or long-term development agreement involving Harbor Point will require your written approval. So Dad and Grant cannot sell it now. They cannot legally sell it at all, the trust owns it. Then why wait until I turn 21? Your grandmother wanted the property protected immediately. She also wanted you to have legal authority when you were old enough to withstand pressure. Pressure. Such a polite word. How much is everything worth? The property was recently appraised at approximately $1.9 million. The maintenance and investment accounts total about $420,000. I felt the room tilt. But your grandmother did not create the trust to make you wealthy, Catherine continued. She created it to prevent your father or uncle from liquidating the house. She knew? She knew enough. Catherine opened another section. Josephine believed Richard saw the property as a solution to his business debt. She knew Grant had developer contacts. She also told me you were the only person who tightened the storm shutters without being asked. I looked down. She chose you deliberately, Evelyn. The words felt like love. They also felt like armor being fastened around my shoulders. Heavy. Necessary. What if they try to sell it anyway? They cannot convey clean title. But they can create trouble. How? They could file false heirship papers, record an unauthorized deed, claim the trust was invalid, pressure you to sign a waiver. They could cloud the title long enough to force a settlement. Can we stop them? We can prepare. For the next 2 years, I lived 2 lives. In one, I was a college student and library assistant, a daughter who came home on Sundays, a sister who listened to Tyler explain why his latest crisis was not his fault. In the other, I was the future co-trustee of a preservation trust my family did not know existed. Every few months, I met Catherine. She taught me the language of protection, recorded deed, trust certification, co-trustee authority, notice of interest, fraud alert, title review, words that sounded cold until I understood they were locks. My family became less subtle. Dad's contracting business deteriorated. A supplier stopped extending credit. A commercial client sued over unfinished work. Tyler financed a truck he could not afford and convinced Mom to co-sign because he was finally becoming serious. Grant began appearing again with folders. Always after dinner. Always when he thought I had gone upstairs. But houses talk. So do vents. 3 months before my 21st birthday, I stood barefoot in the upstairs hallway and listened. Grant said, "Atlantic will pay 2.4 if we deliver the middle parcel clean." Dad replied, "I thought it was 1.9. That was before they secured the north lot." Mom asked, "What about Evelyn?" Grant laughed. "She does not own the property. She believes Josephine left it to her. Belief is not ownership." He was right about that. What he did not know was that Grandma had recorded the deed. Dad lowered his voice. "Did you run title?" "I ran a preliminary search under Mom's name. Nothing current came back." "What does that mean?" "It means the records are probably buried under a trust or old filing. Atlantic has not ordered the full title commitment yet." "What package?" "An heirship affidavit from you and me, a quitclaim deed into an LLC, and a waiver from Evelyn releasing any beneficiary, occupancy, or inheritance claim." My heart began pounding. Grant did not know the trust terms. He knew enough to fear them. That was why he needed my signature. Mom asked, "What if she refuses?" "She won't. We do it in front of family. We tell her this saves Richard's business and helps Tyler. She'll sign to avoid humiliating you." Dad was silent. Then he asked, "How soon?" Grant replied, "Her birthday dinner. She turns 21 next month. Perfect timing. We make it a family decision. That night, I texted Catherine 2 words. They're moving. She answered immediately. Come tomorrow. Bring your notebook. The next afternoon, Catherine placed a yellow legal pad between us. Your birthday is April 17th, she said. At midnight, you become eligible to accept co-trustee authority. You will sign electronically from Harbor Point with me present by video. And then, I file the acceptance, updated trust certification, and notice of co-trustee authority with the county recorder at 8 in the morning. I will also activate a property fraud alert. Any inconsistent filing should be routed for manual review. Should? County offices are staffed by human beings. We prepare layers because human beings make mistakes. She showed me the evidence package. The deed recorded 4 years earlier. The trust instrument. A letter from Grandma's physician confirming she had full mental capacity when she signed. Witness statements. Tax payments from the trust account. Insurance records naming the trust. And a written instruction from Grandma directing Catherine to oppose any family attempt to sell. At the bottom, Grandma had written, Evelyn understands the house is not a prize. It is a responsibility. I touched the page. Catherine's voice softened. She was proud of you. That almost broke me. Pride, when you have lived without enough of it, can feel like grief. What do I do until my birthday? Nothing publicly. I sit through dinner and let them believe they are winning? Yes. That feels like surrender. It is not surrender if it is strategy. I wrote it down. Silence is not surrender when it is strategy. The week before my birthday, Mom came into my bedroom while I was folding laundry. She never entered my room unless she needed emotional access. Sweetheart, she began, smoothing a towel that was already smooth. Your father is under enormous pressure. I kept folding. The business is worse than he has admitted. I placed a shirt in the drawer. And Tyler is trying, but he needs support. I looked up. Tyler is 23. He is your brother. He is also an adult. Her mouth tightened, then softened. Families make difficult decisions together. Harbor Point is beautiful, but impractical. It sits empty. I am there every weekend. That is not the same as the whole family using it. They wanted to sell it because they did not use it. I wanted to keep it because I did. Grandma wanted it protected. Mom Sahil. Your grandmother was emotional. She put ideas into your head that made everything harder. Without intending to, she told the truth. Grandma had put ideas into my head. Ownership. Evidence. Boundaries. Worth. You will understand when you are older, Mom said. I looked at her. I am older than you think. She did not like that answer. 2 days before my birthday, Grant waited outside the campus library. He leaned against a black SUV like a man selling expensive lies. Evie. I hated that name from him. I stopped anyway. 5 minutes, he said. I have class. This concerns Harbor Point. We walked toward the parking lot. Atlantic Shoreline is making an offer most families would beg for. How much? His smile flickered. That is not the point. It sounds like the point. 2.4 million. I let the number remain between us. And what do I get? Your father intends to set aside $75,000 for you. Out of 2.4 million? For a 21-year-old, $75,000 is life-changing. So is losing a $2 million property. His smile disappeared. You do not own the property. Then why do you need my signature? For the first time, his confidence cracked. Only slightly. We need a family waiver to prevent future disputes. A waiver of what? Possible beneficiary or occupancy claims. So I own nothing, but my signature still matters. His jaw moved. I am trying to help everyone. No, you are trying to make everyone sound like you. He stepped closer. You do not understand how these deals work. I held his gaze. That is what you are counting on. He recovered. Dinner is Friday, he said. Bring a pen. That night, I drove to Harbor Point alone. Wind rattled the shutters. The kitchen light warmed the old table. I made tea in Grandma's kettle, then walked through the rooms touching familiar things. The pantry shelf I painted at 14. The window frame she taught me to sand. The blue bedroom upstairs. The burn mark in the kitchen table. The house sounded different in the wind, but not afraid. At 11:45 p.m., on April 16th, I opened my laptop at the kitchen table. Catherine appeared by video from her office. She wore reading glasses and a gray sweater. Are you alone? Yes. Good. We waited. The ocean moved in the darkness beyond the windows. At 11:59, Catherine said, Your grandmother once asked whether you would be angry when you learned what she had done. What did you tell her? That you might be. And? She said the anger was allowed. My eyes filled. The clock changed. 2:11, 2:01, 21. Catherine guided me through every document. Acceptance of co-trustee authority. Acknowledgement of fiduciary duties. Confirmation of the preservation restrictions. Authorization to record updated notice. Activation of the property alert. I signed my full name 8 times. Evelyn Rose Marlowe. Not Evie. Not sweetheart. Not responsible one. My name. At 12:11 a.m. Catherine saved the final document. It's complete. That was all. No thunder. No music. No judge. Just a young woman in a quiet kitchen and the legal weight of a promise becoming real. The house was already protected, Catherine said. Now you have authority to defend it. What if they hate me? She took a moment before answering. People who depend on control often experience boundaries as betrayal. The birthday dinner was held that evening at the Gilded Pear. That alone told me something was wrong. My parents did not choose expensive restaurants unless someone else was paying or they expected money before the bill arrived. 14 people were already inside the private room when I entered. My parents. Tyler. Grant. 2 of Dad's business contacts. A couple from church. Aunt Lydia. 2 neighbors. My cousin Paige. Grant's assistant Melissa. And Charles Calder from Atlantic Shoreline Group. I was the 15th guest. Calder was introduced as a friend of Grant's. He was not there as a friend. Melissa had a notary bag beside her chair. Calder had a thin purchase memorandum in front of him. Grant had the leather folder. I saw all 3 immediately. Dad kissed my cheek. Big night. Mom hugged me too tightly. Tyler had already begun drinking. Grant raised his glass. There she is, the woman of the hour. I sat between Mom and Aunt Lydia. Lydia squeezed my hand beneath the table. You all right? It was the first sincere question anyone had asked me that night. I'm fine. Dinner unfolded like theater. Dad told a story about teaching me to ride a bicycle. Mom said Grandma Jo would have been proud. Tyler joked that I was finally old enough to buy him decent wine. Grant checked his watch repeatedly. Calder barely touched his food. Melissa kept her phone close. At 9:14 p.m., as dessert plates were being placed, Dad touched my shoulder. Come with me. He led me into the hallway near the restrooms. The smile disappeared from his face. When dessert is over, you will sign documents for Grant. Do not make this difficult. What documents? A waiver and family consent connected to Harbor Point. I have not agreed to a sale. His eyes hardened. Evelyn. My name became a warning. Your mother is exhausted. I am drowning. Tyler needs help. This family needs you to be mature tonight. There it is. What? The part where my maturity costs me something. His face flushed. Do not start. I looked past him at the closed dining room door. Then I smiled. I won't make a scene. Relief appeared. That's my girl. I entered the restroom and locked myself inside the last stall. My phone showed Catherine's message. Filed at 8:03 a.m. Recorded at 8:19 a.m. Co-trustee authority confirmed. Property alert active. The deed had protected the house for 4 years. Now the public record also showed my authority. Grant's plan was already dead. He simply had not been informed. I washed my hands and returned to dessert. The cake had white frosting and sugared violets. Everyone sang. I blew out the candles. Grant applauded too loudly. Then Dad stood. He loved audiences. Evelyn turning 21 is an important milestone, he began. My mother Josephine would have been proud. Aunt Lydia tensed beside me. Dad continued. In that spirit, our family has made a decision to honor what Mom built, by using it to secure the future she would have wanted for all of us. Grant stood with the leather folder. The Harbor Point property, Dad said, has become too valuable and too burdensome to maintain. We have an opportunity to sell it to a group that will develop it beautifully. Calder gave a small professional smile. Mom dabbed her eyes. Your grandmother believed in family, she said. Family requires sacrifice. Love with an invoice attached. Dad turned toward me. Evelyn understands. She will sign a waiver and consent tonight so we can move forward. Every person in the room looked at me. The old version of me would have frozen. The responsible one. The quiet one. The girl trained to make rooms comfortable even when she was bleeding inside them. I placed my fork on the plate. No. Dad blinked. Grant's smile stopped. Mom whispered my name. I stood. I am not signing anything. Grant gave one short laugh. Do not make this dramatic. You brought a developer and a notary to my birthday dinner. The room went silent. Calder looked toward Grant. Melissa closed her notary bag. Dad stepped toward me. This is not the time. You are right, I said. Grant's face changed. What does that mean? Mom asked. It means Harbor Point is owned by the Marlowe Coastal Preservation Trust. It has been for 4 years. Grandma transferred the property while she was alive. Nobody moved. I became co-trustee at midnight. Catherine Bell recorded my authority this morning. No sale, mortgage, transfer, or development agreement can happen without my written approval. I looked at Grant. You have none. Calder stood. Grant? Grant pointed toward me. She does not understand the documents. Aunt Lydia spoke. I think she understands them better than anyone here. Dad had gone pale. Mom looked from him to Grant. You said Josephine never filed anything. Grant snapped. I said my search under her individual name did not show a current property. That is not the same thing, Lydia said. Calder picked up his folder. Did you order a title commitment? Grant did not answer. Calder's expression hardened. You accepted an advance before ordering full title? It was conditional. On your representation that the family controlled the parcel. Grant moved toward him. We can solve this. No, I said. You cannot. Dad grabbed my wrist. Outside. I looked at his hand. Then at him. Let go. Something in my voice made him release me. Mom followed us into a narrow service hallway. This time, her tears were not quiet. How could you humiliate us in front of everyone? I stared at her. You brought a developer to my birthday and announced that I would sign away Grandma's house. We were trying to save the family. No. You were trying to use me to save yourselves. Dad lowered his voice. If you leave without fixing this, do not come home. The old me would have flinched. The new me still felt the pain. She simply did not obey it. You are throwing me out. I am telling you that actions have consequences. For once, I said. We agree. Mom gasped. Grant entered the hallway with his phone in one hand. What exactly did you file? I did not file anything. Catherine did. You had no right. I am the co-trustee. That property belongs to the Marlowe family. No, it belongs to the trust. And the trust exists because Grandma knew what this family would do. That landed. Dad looked away. Mom covered her mouth. Grant narrowed his eyes. You think this is over? I think tomorrow morning will be worse for you. I left with Aunt Lydia. She did not ask questions in the car. She drove me to her apartment, gave me towels, and prepared the sofa bed. At 1:32 a.m., Tyler sent a message. Dad says you ruined everything. Also, does this mean the truck payoff is not happening? I blocked him. It felt less like anger than hygiene. The next morning, Grant and Dad entered the county recorder's office. Catherine was already waiting. She sat in the lobby wearing a charcoal blazer and pretending to read a newspaper. Grant approached the counter with 3 documents. A false heirship affidavit declaring that Josephine died owning Harbor Point individually. A quitclaim deed transferring the property from Richard and Grant to a new limited liability company. And a purchase memorandum referencing Atlantic Shoreline Group. The clerk entered the parcel number, then entered it again. I cannot accept these. Grant leaned forward. Why? The recorded owner is the Marlowe Coastal Preservation Trust. The deed was recorded 4 years ago. Updated co-trustee authority was recorded yesterday. That is impossible. The clerk looked at the screen. It appears to be quite possible. Dad stepped closer. I am Josephine Marlowe's son. That may be true, sir, but you do not own this property. Grant tapped the counter. There is an error. Catherine folded the newspaper. No error. My father turned. His face fell when he saw her. Catherine approached with a leather portfolio. I represent the trust. Any further attempt to record unauthorized documents against Harbor Point will be referred for legal action. Grant laughed. Are you threatening me inside a public office? No, Catherine said. I am notifying you. The clerk looked again at the affidavit. There is also a problem with the notarization. Catherine turned toward her. What problem? The commission number expired 2 years ago. Dad looked slowly at Grant. Grant said nothing. His silence answered every question. At 9:12 a.m., I sat at Lydia's kitchen table with a cup of cold coffee. What did you do? I kept a promise. You went behind my back. Grandma went in front of you. You refused to look. He exhaled. Grant is the trust can be challenged. Grant also submitted a document with an expired notary commission. Silence. You do not know that. Catherine does. A longer silence. This one frightened him. Evelyn, he said. And my name sounded less like a warning. If this deal collapses, I lose everything. No, Dad. You lose the thing you were never entitled to use. He ended the call. The following weeks were ugly. Atlantic Shoreline withdrew from the proposed acquisition. Because Grant had signed a conditional pre-sale agreement and accepted a due diligence advance after claiming his family controlled the parcel, Atlantic sued his company for misrepresentation and recovery of costs. The claim was for $310,000. Grant's real estate license was suspended during the investigation. The false notarization was referred to the state fraud unit. Dad lost 2 contracting jobs after word spread that he had tried to transfer property he did not own. Mom called Aunt Lydia repeatedly, saying I had destroyed the family. Lydia eventually answered. No, Allison. Evelyn stopped being the family's emergency fund. Tyler arrived at Lydia's apartment one afternoon. He knocked like the police. Lydia opened the door holding a wooden spoon. I need to speak to my sister. I came into the hallway. He looked exhausted. Unshaven. Angry. Afraid. You blocked me. Yes. I needed that money. For the truck? For my life. I looked at him. You are not entitled to mine because yours is uncomfortable. He stepped back. You sound like Grandma. Thank you. That made him angrier. She turned you against us. No. She gave me a place to stand. He left. 2 weeks later, Catherine asked me to come to her office. The bakery downstairs was making cinnamon rolls. She had a new envelope on her desk. Your grandmother asked me to give you this only after the first challenge to the trust had been resolved. The first? Catherine gave me a tired smile. She knew her sons. Grandma's handwriting covered 2 pages. My Evelyn, if you are reading this, then they tried. I am sorry. I wanted to believe I was wrong about them, but love is not blindness. I can love my son and still know that desperation may convince him to sell the roof over your memories and call it practical. Do not confuse their need with your duty. Do not confuse their anger with your guilt. Do not confuse peace with surrender. The house is protected because you cared for it before it could give you anything in return. Take care of it. It took care of you first. The trust also contains enough money to complete your education without depending on anyone who may use that dependence against you. Use it carefully. Live honestly. And remember that being chosen does not mean carrying everyone. It means protecting what matters. With all my love, Grandma Jo. By the time I finished, I was crying too hard to hide it. Catherine placed a box of tissues near me and looked out the window. That was kindness too. Not requiring grief to become tidy. The education account contained $68,000. My father had offered me $75,000 to surrender the house. Grandma had already left me almost that much to keep it. Quietly. Without bargaining. Without asking me to betray myself. I moved into Harbor Point in June. Not forever. Not officially. But enough. I changed my mailing address. Forwarded my college records. Bought groceries. Put clean sheets on the upstairs bed. Paid the electric bill from the trust maintenance account according to Catherine's instructions. On the first night, I slept with the windows open. The ocean was loud. The house creaked. At 3 a.m, the brass bell rang once in the wind. For one sleepy second, I thought it was Grandma. Maybe it was. Grant's case took months. Atlantic eventually settled after he returned the advance, reimbursed part of its due diligence expenses, and accepted a 2-year license suspension. He pleaded to a misdemeanor related to knowingly submitting a falsely notarized document. The prosecutor could not prove he personally created the false notarization, only that he used it. Dad was not charged. But he was forced to admit under oath that he knew the family did not have confirmed title before the birthday dinner. His contracting business closed before the end of the year. My parents sold the Northbridge house to cover part of the debt. For 34 days, Dad and I did not speak. Then he called. Your mother and I are selling the house, he said. I heard. The business debt is too much. I listened. Part of me wanted to say, that sounds like a consequence. I did not. After a long silence, he said, Grant wants you to make a statement that the family believed Harbor Point was still in Mom's name. I will not lie. His breath caught. Right. Neither of us spoke for a while. Then he asked, "Your grandmother really put everything in the trust?" "Yes." "Why you?" I looked around the kitchen, the shells on the windowsill, the burn mark on the table, the pantry door I painted with her. Because I listened. He did not understand. Perhaps he never would. But for once, he did not argue. My mother came to Harbor Point in July. She arrived without calling, wearing sunglasses and carrying a canvas bag. I nearly refused to open the door. Then I remembered something. Opening the door did not mean surrendering the house. She stepped inside and looked around as though the rooms had betrayed her. "It looks the same. Mostly." She touched the back of a kitchen chair. "She never offered this place to us. She knew you wanted to sell it." Mom's mouth tightened. "You say that as though we were greedy." I remained silent. Sometimes, silence is the only answer that does not help a lie. "Your father was desperate," she said. "I know." Tyler was struggling. "I know. We were all struggling. And you decided my promise was the solution." Her eyes filled. I used to fold whenever my mother cried. That day, I did not. "I am still your mother," she whispered. "Yes, and I am still a person." She closed her eyes. For the first time in my life, I watched her search for words and fail to find ones that worked. At the door, she looked back. "I do not know how to be close to you if I cannot tell you what to do." It was the most honest sentence she had spoken in years. "Maybe that is where we start," I said. Tyler took longer. Consequences had to corner him before he noticed them. In October, he came to the beach house and knocked softly. That alone told me something had changed. He stood on the porch holding a paper bag. "I brought muffins." "You hate muffins." I panicked at the bakery. I almost smiled. "Can I come in?" I stepped aside. He sat at the kitchen table where Grandma used to sit. "I am sorry." I waited. "For asking about the truck at your birthday." I said nothing. "And for letting everyone make things your job." That was better. "I was jealous of you," he admitted. I laughed once. Not kindly. "You received everything." He shook his head. "I was rescued. That is not the same thing." I looked at him. For once, he was not defending himself. He was examining himself. "Grandma stopped trusting me," he said. "She did not stop loving you." "I know." His eyes turned red. "But I became someone she could not trust." That sentence opened a small door. Not wide enough to erase anything. Enough for air. We ate the muffins. They were terrible. He had been right to panic. By winter, Harbor Point had become mine in the daily way. The only way ownership ever feels real. I learned the rhythm of the oil heater. Which window needed a towel during sideways rain? Which store still sold decent produce after tourist season? Which neighbor cleared the road before sunrise? I replaced the mailbox, repainted the porch railing, framed Grandma's letter above the upstairs desk. "Take care of it. It took care of you first." In December, I invited a few people to dinner. Not a holiday. I was not ready for that much symbolism. Aunt Lydia came. Tyler came. Mr. and Mrs. Beckett came from next door. Catherine brought a bottle of wine and said it was mostly ceremonial. Dad came alone. Mom said she was not ready. That was honest enough. Dad stood awkwardly in the kitchen while I stirred soup. "This table still has the burn mark," he said. "Yes. My father did that." "I know." He touched the mark. "I hated this house when I was young." I looked at him. "Your grandparents were happiest here," he said. I thought that meant they were happier away from me. For one moment, I saw him differently. Not forgiven, not excused. Younger. A boy outside a feeling he could not enter. A boy who became a man who believed owning the house might finally prove he belonged inside it. "That does not make what you did acceptable," I said. "I know." He looked at me. "I am sorry, Evelyn." Not Evie. Evelyn. My eyes burned. "Thank you." It was not enough to repair everything. But it was real. And real things deserve to be recognized. After dinner, Dad stayed to help wash dishes. For a while, we worked in silence. Then he said, "Your grandmother was right to choose you." My hands stopped in the water. He did not look at me. "I would not have kept it," he said. "I know." He nodded. No defense. No explanation. Just the truth. When he left, the house did not feel lighter. It felt less haunted. By spring, I had changed my college major to historic preservation with a focus on coastal structures. Catherine said Grandma would have called it deliciously specific. I began volunteering with a local nonprofit that helped property owners protect historic homes from predatory development. That was the part nobody expected. Not Grant. Not Dad. Not me. The thing they tried to take. In May, Atlantic Shoreline proposed acquiring another row of old cottages north of Harbor Point. I spoke at the town meeting. My voice shook for the first minute. Then I looked at the sentence written at the top of my notes. Blood tells you where you came from. Loyalty tells you who your family really is. I looked up and continued. The development proposal failed by 2 votes. Mrs. Beckett cried in the parking lot. Catherine hugged me. That surprised both of us. On my 22nd birthday, Mom called. I sat on the porch with coffee. I do not expect an invitation, she said. I only wanted to say happy birthday. Thank you. There was a pause. I hope the house is beautiful today. I looked at the ocean beneath the morning light. It is. I am glad. Her voice cracked. I am sorry I made you believe love had to be repaid. The sentence moved through me slowly. It did not heal everything, but it touched the wound honestly. Thank you for saying that. I do not know whether I can become different. You can learn. She gave a small laugh through tears. You sound like Josephine. Good. This time, she did not argue. That summer, I hosted a birthday dinner at Harbor Point. Nothing expensive. No chandelier. No developer. No leather folder. String lights hung above the porch. We ate grilled fish, corn, salad, and a cake Aunt Lydia made too sweet. Catherine arrived late with flowers. The Becketts brought folding chairs. Tyler carried a bakery box. Not muffins, he said. I checked. Dad came. Mom came. Nobody discussed selling. Nobody mentioned sacrifice. Nobody asked me to sign anything. After dinner, everyone walked toward the sand. Mom stood beside me near the waterline. Your grandmother loved you very much, she said. I know. I think I was jealous. I turned toward her. The confession remained between us. Ugly. Fragile. True. She saw you, Mom continued. And I did not know how to compete with someone who understood my daughter better than I did. The old version of me would have comforted her. The new version let the truth stand. I needed you to see me too. She wiped beneath one eye. I know. Perhaps that was a beginning. Not perfection. Perfection is something families print on holiday cards. But something possible. Later, after everyone left, Tyler helped carry dishes into the kitchen. He paused beside the table. Do you ever think you might sell? I looked at him. He raised both hands. Not like before. I mean someday, if you wanted to. No. Good, he said. This would make a terrible resort. I laughed. A real laugh. The kind that surprises you after years of holding your breath. When the house was quiet again, I stood on the porch. The same porch where Grandma taught me to hear a loose screw in a screen door. The same porch my family tried to turn into a transaction. The ocean moved in the darkness. The pines bent toward the wind. Still rooted. I did not win because my family lost. There is no clean victory when the people who hurt you are the same people whose approval once felt necessary for survival. I won because I stopped confusing being needed with being loved. I won because I learned that a boundary is not betrayal. I won because Grandma Jo left me more than a house. She left me proof. Proof that I could be trusted. Proof that I could stand alone. Proof that paper, signed by the right person at the right time, can protect a promise better than 1,000 apologies. The house is still here. The brass bell still rings when the back door opens too quickly. The table still carries the burn mark. The storm shutters still stick in wet weather. The pines still lean toward the ocean. Bent. But rooted. And every Saturday morning, before I do anything else, I walk through the rooms and listen. A house will tell you what it needs. So will a life. You only have to stop letting other people speak over it. What promise or boundary have you ever had to protect from the very people who called themselves family? Tell me in the comments, and subscribe to Calm Deception Stories for more stories about betrayal, quiet strength, and justice that arrives without shouting. I'll see you in the next story.